So it's a new month, and we do themes every month, and I always get excited on the first Sunday of the month to introduce the new theme. And the theme this month is going to be about what we as a spiritual community are absolutely committed to. We are committed to being a transformative presence, to have hearts opened to God's love and joy and absolute, the riches of the universe, to have our hearts open to that, and to have our human yet divinely inspired dreams incubated, and more than incubated, actually brought into manifestation in this world. That's what this community is about. And we do those things by applying our beautiful, deep, profound science of mind spiritual teachings. So transforming our lives and then the world by having our hearts open to God's love and joy and abundance, and to manifest our specialized, personalized, individualized, unique dreams. That's what we're about, and I decided that's what this month was going to be about. And little did I know when I set this theme that I would be saying this. And that is that I believe that when the world is transformed in these ways, and it starts with who? Me and you. It starts with us. When the world has, when humanity has their hearts opened to God's love and peace and joy and abundance, when the world is feeling connected to something bigger than their own stuff, when individuals are manifesting their dreams and bringing their gifts and talents into the world and experiencing the things that bring them joy in life, when that occurs, we will no longer have the energy that can uphold and have occur what happened in Oregon this week. Which, in case you don't know that, there was another college shooting, and many more people were killed and or wounded in that. And I truly believe that when we can tip the scale of hearts open to God's love and personal dreams manifested, when there is more energy of that than there is of the pain and dark energy within that exists, when we tip that scale, those kind of events cannot happen. So would you like to be on the side of tipping the scale so we don't see that stuff in our world anymore? Yeah? I'm glad to hear that. Because we have identified here 7 spiritual practices that when we practice them in tandem, meaning we're doing all of them, it's not just 1 or 2. It's kind of like, remember the circus plate spinner? Do you remember the plate spinner? And you know, he'd get all those plates spinning all at the same time. The magic happened when he was spinning all the plates at the same time. And every now and then one would start to wobble and he'd run over and he'd spin that, and another he'd keep them all spinning. That's kind of like our spiritual practices. We got to keep them all spinning. And sometimes one may need a little more attention than another one because it's gotten perhaps a little wobbly. But nonetheless, we're going to do all of them. We have identified 7. And now, of course, being who I am, those of you who know me, once, we identified 7, then of course I thought of several more that could have been in the 7, or could have been in addition to the 7. So this month we're going to explore on different Sundays, different ones of the 7. We'll cover them all. And then the last Sunday of the month we'll add a couple more because I just think there are a couple of more. And maybe we'll create it is Sacred 7. Maybe we'll create I don't know what it'll be, the Tremendous 10 or whatever, or what Divine Dozen. I'm not sure what it will wind up being. But the 7 are, just so we can come on the same page and know what all they are. But actually, before I do that, let me ask you, did anybody know where you could actually find a list of those Sacred 7? Where might it be? Suzanne, where? Right in the lobby. When you walk in, there's a poster that has them. Good job. I just have to say, and this is not a blame thing, First Service, I love and adore you, but nobody in First Service said in the lobby. Where else might you find it? In the Wisdom Center, yep, which is our bookstore. What else? Diana? In the Holmes Hall, Fellowship Hall, yes. Any place else? Cynthia, the Lending Library, yes. And I believe in one of our classrooms as well, we have a poster. So we have these beautiful posters. Come last Sunday of the month and you'll actually get a copy of that poster if you want that. But here they are. Meditation, visioning, spiritual mind treatment, which is a very specific form of prayer that we engage in religious science, visualizing, not to be confused with visioning, they're different, using affirmations, sacred service, known as seva, and sacred giving, known as tithing. Those are the sacred 7 that we have identified. So the question is, where do we go today? What are we going to? Which of those will we explore today? Well, I'm going to give you a Sufi teaching and a story. And between the two of them, you might be able to figure out which of those 7 we're going to explore today. So the Sufi teaching goes like this. Past the seeker as he prayed came the crippled and the beggar and the beaten. And seeing them, the seeker cried, "Great God, how is it that a loving creator such as you can see these things and do nothing about it?" And God replied to the seeker and said, "I did not do nothing about it. I sent you." Amen. And the story is, and it is not a story I already told Dave in first service, it's not a story that requires a bada-ding, bada-doon. So he's off the hook on that one. And so are you, off the hook of having to laugh at a bad joke. Instead, it's a story of a little small Catholic church in California. I believe it's actually a true story. Where one Sunday morning, as the parishioners were coming into church, they gasped in horror as they walked in and they saw their statue of Jesus, which is, of course, going to be prominent in a Catholic church. And a vandal had come into the church sometime between then and when they were there before and had taken off the hands of the statue of Jesus. And so the congregation was just bereft at that, and they had a meeting after service with the priest, and they were talking about what they were going to do, and they immediately started fundraising to buy a new statue. The next Sunday, they're filing into Mass again, and this time they gasp again, but for a different reason. Rather than in horror, they gasped in awe, because hanging from the neck of this Jesus was a hand-painted sign that said, "I have no hands but yours." Karen Drucker, a beautiful New Thought singer-songwriter, wrote a song called "Blessing to the World." And the chorus of it says, "I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world." That's you. That's me. We are the heart, the hands, the voice of God on this earth. We are God in expression. And in order for God to be expressed, we must express it. Now, God is being expressed in all sorts of ways. We're not the only way, but we're an important way in which the divine energy of life itself gets expressed. So, what might be our sacred practices for today? We're going to go with 2 of them, and they are sacred service, known as seva, and we'll explore that, and sacred giving, known as tithing. So if either of those bring up stuff for you, just take a breath and go with me on where we're going to go today, because here's what I believe. When we give of our time and our talent in sacred service, when we give of our treasure in sacred giving or tithing, we are reenacting the loving givingness of God and therefore expressing our divine nature at a very high level. So that is so important. I want to say that again, because if you don't walk away with anything else today, I want you to anchor into what I just said. When we give of ourselves through sacred tithing of or giving of our time and our talent, and when we give of our treasure through the sacred idea of tithing, we are reenacting the loving givingness of God, which is God's divine nature, and therefore we are expressing our divine nature in one of the highest ways we possibly can. So that's where we're going to go today. We're going to look at what do those things actually mean for us in our lives, really. So let's look at this idea of sacred service or seva. Seva is a Sanskrit word. And That's why we love using it, because it literally does mean sacred service. It doesn't mean doing something out of martyrdom or because you should or because somebody needs it done. It's not that at all. And it's actually way more than just what we might think, which is volunteering. Now, there are a myriad of ways, shapes, and forms that any person could volunteer at any given moment. I worked, before I became a minister, I worked for 2 years in a nonprofit organization that was a transitional housing program helping homeless families, low-income homeless families, get back on their feet. And my job had 2 parts to it. One of them was fundraising. The other part was recruiting, training, and retaining volunteers. So I got a good taste of, wow, how important, and of course, being a minister, I understand that as well, but even then, of how vitally important volunteers are to the functioning of an organization. And there were always plenty of opportunities for people to volunteer. But here's what I also discovered, and I had discovered this before I became the sponsor developer, which was my title, because I worked for a law firm before that, and we, as a law firm, volunteered for that organization. It was called Homeward Bound, and I was a volunteer before I became an employee. So here's what I learned. Not just then, but I had it so anchored in me, that as a volunteer, as giving service, I was as richly blessed as were the people who I was serving. I discovered that. So we often think that Seva is about volunteering. And when it's talked about from the pulpit, it might even be viewed as, oh dear, here she goes. She's going to be trying to recruit us to, do more stuff for the church. I am not trying to recruit anybody to do more stuff. I think we're all doing a lot of stuff. Seva is about how we do our stuff, whatever that is. Seva is saying, I come with a consciousness of love and service to whatever I'm doing. Whether it is talking to a clerk at the grocery store, or whether it is, taking the collection here at CLF, or creating food in our fellowship hall. Whatever it might be, Seva is not just, I'm volunteering my time. Seva says, I am showing up as a spiritual practice in a way that serves the world. I am giving of myself in service to the world. And when I do that, I am absolutely living from my divine nature, which is givingness, because that is what God is. There's another story from the east of a revered saint by the name of Ramakrishna, who a very elderly lady came to him one day and said, Ramakrishna, my time on this earth is short. I'm sure I'm nearing death. And I don't feel like I have really known the divine. And I think I'm too old to start any new spiritual practices, but I'm afraid to die without having connected with the divine. What is it I should do? And he thought for a moment, and then he said to her, what do you love? What do you love? And she said, well, with great enthusiasm, she said, I love my grandson. I just love my grandson. And with that, Ramakrishna said, then that is your spiritual practice. Love him and see the divine in him. So what do you love? That could be your spiritual practice of seva. Do it with seeing the divine in everything. As Ernest Holmes said, we should give of ourselves in love and service to others, in a spirit of generosity and good fellowship. To refuse to give is to refuse to receive, for everything moves in a circle. Real giving is the givingness of the self. A kind word, a thoughtful act, perhaps just a smile, can help lighten the burdens of others. So the spiritual practice of selfless service, or seva, is one of the simplest and yet most profound spiritual practices we can engage in. And it is a way to walk the talk. Because it's one thing to sit in a room like this or study and read about oneness and about how we're all connected and related and that love changes the world and, all those wonderful things that sound so good. But what do we do when we go out in the world? That's where it makes a difference. And our seva is how we show up in life. to not only human beings, but to all of God's beings and God's creature. And today is Animal Prayer, as a World Animal Day. So I want to acknowledge that today is World Animal Day and say that, our Seva doesn't just relate to human beings. It relates to animals and the earth itself. And as I think about the blessings of Seva and how it is not only a blessing to whoever you are serving, with whatever that might be, a smile or your time, whatever it might be, the blessings to that being or person as well as to us, I have to think back here on World Animal Day to about a month ago, a little more than a month ago, when a little stray, matted, dirty, messy little dog dropped itself almost literally in Lonnie's and my lap. And we decided that, yes, we would take this little homeless dog and make him ours. And when we were on vacation this last week, by the way, I meant to thank everyone who held the fort down while we were gone. I forgot to do that, so thank you for that. While Lonnie and I were on vacation, we took a little Curly, is his name, by the way, because he was a curly mess when we got him. That's why we named him that. Also in a nod to Lonnie's favorite 3 comedians, Mo, Larry, and Curly. Yes, so that's why we named this little guy Curly. But anyway, we took him over to Doctors Bob and Bobby's house, sitting right there. They have a little dog, Max, and Curly went there and spent the week with Max, and they loved and romped and had so much fun. And Bobby said to me recently, I'm not sure his name should be Curly. I think his name should be Jackpot, because when he landed with you guys, he hit the jackpot. Now, that's true. He did, because he'll have a really, really good, very, very good life from now on. But the thing is, we hit the jackpot. We hit the jackpot, because this little guy is so those of you who've met him, he is so precious. And the only thing he wants to do, the thing that makes him happier than anything in life, is to be curled up, which is another reason his name is Curly, although I didn't know it, to be curled up in a lap. And many times that lap is mine. And I am extremely happy about that. So I want to also acknowledge here this morning something that we do every quarter, and we usually do it at the beginning of the service, but it felt just very appropriate this morning to do it here now. Because we, every quarter, honor someone who has, here at this church, shown up in extreme seva, in extreme sacred service. And I want to do that here this morning with someone who has had some official duties, but it's his unofficial role that is what is causing us really to do this. But the official roles have been greeter, usher, and now for at least a year has served every single Sunday in the kitchen, supporting our bountiful queen bee, Anne. She calls him her bee boy. Yeah, so now many of you know who I'm talking about. But the real reason we are celebrating and honoring Tony Hogue, who can now start coming up here this morning, is because of the light that he is in this community and the amazing hugs that he offers. There you go. So Tony Hogue here is our volunteer of the quarter because of just the way he shows up here every single Sunday. How many buses do you have to take to get here?
3.
3 buses. How long does it take you?
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours to get here every single Sunday, rain or shine. He is here.
And it was raining today.
And it was raining today when he came. To share his love with us and to receive a little bit back as well. So, Tony, we love you. We thank you.
I love this church so much. I love it.
And what we're giving Tony this morning, we already handed him the official documents, are not only a little certificate, but a T-shirt from the CLF T-shirt from the bookstore, yay, and a 30-day bus pass. So, yay! All right, baby. Congratulations. Oh, yes, we do. And I'm all choked up. So I want to give you another example of seva. Sacred service. Simply showing up in love is what this is. So this is Deborah Covington's story. Deborah is our business and finance manager, and it relates to Tony becoming our volunteer of the quarter. She wrote me this little note the other week. I went to Safeway to purchase the bus pass for Tony. I was giving the necessary information to the woman at the service desk when she asked me who the bus pass was for. I began telling her about our Volunteer of the Quarter program and this quarter's recipient, Tony. When halfway through the story, she called over 2 more women to hear who he is, what he means to our community, and how we were planning a special recognition of him. One woman began to weep, and they all thanked me profusely for sharing how loving our community is. Apparently, they were all having a challenging day, but by the time I left, they were all glowing with joy. Yeah. And then, later that day, our female mail carrier brought our mail in just to let us know that she had gotten her route transferred. She wanted us to know that we were her favorite customers, as Nicole, who's also in the office, and I had expressed love towards her many times. We had told her many times that she was loved. She mentioned she hadn't experienced anyone at her job expressing love to her, and how it made a difference in the way she felt about performing her job just because we did. That, my friends, is the spiritual practice of Seva. There it is. You are the heart. You are the hands. You are the voice of Spirit on earth. And who you are and all you do is a blessing to you and a blessing to the world. That's our first spiritual practice. Our second one that we're going to look at this morning is the spiritual practice of sacred giving, or what we call tithing. And I know that can bring up stuff for people. I go, oh dear, here she goes, looking for money for the church. I invite you, if that button got pushed, just to acknowledge it. Okay, there it is. And open your heart to hearing what I have to say, okay? Because you're going to be glad you did. You're going to be glad you did. Tithing, 10%. It's a scriptural promise, actually, one of the very few promises that's made in the Bible. It's a promise that as we tithe, which is giving 10%, that's what tithe means, literally 10%, to a source or sources of our spiritual support, of food, of who or what reminds us of who we are. That's what a spiritual support or food means, who reminds us of who we are. When we give 1/10 of our financial good to a source or source that has spiritually reminded us of who we are, and whose work in the world we want to have continue, so that we can continue to be fed, and so others can be as well. When we do that, we are now really walking our talk. And we are spiritualizing our relationship with this thing that some of us have challenges with, and it's called money. Right? Mm-hmm. Anybody know anybody who has a challenge with money? Meaning not enough. Meaning feeling like, I could use some more. Okay, only 5 of you know somebody. I'm really impressed. That's pretty cool. Good job. Way to go. That's not what I hear, but I'm glad that that's what you're telling me this morning. We spiritualize our relationship with this energy of God that is money when we choose to recognize that it's all God. It all belongs to God anyway. And so I am going to return 1/10 of it to God's work, and I'm going to have the rest of it to use as I please, to do what I'm here to do in the work in this world. It causes us to trust. It causes us to come into a deeper relationship with God. When we choose to write a tithe check or offer a tithe, and we acknowledge that I am trusting God to not only replace this, but to expand this. And I'm also trusting God that the place I give it, or the person to whom I give it, is using this in a high and holy way, and it's none of my business how it gets used. I let that go. But just a trust in knowing that this is going to be used to support me and others in continuing to grow and expand. That, my friends, is high and holy spiritual practice. It causes us to trust. And there is nothing more important than that. Meister Eckhart, a beautiful mystic from the 1200s, said, "There is nothing else a person can do that is so beautiful as to put complete trust in God. God never failed anyone who trusted him greatly, but rather by them does great things." When we tithe, we say we know that God is our source, not the channels through which our good comes. We often look at our channels as source. And a channel, I mean our job, our investments, the government, our ex-spouse, whatever it might be. Those are all channels, not the source. They're channels, and when we tithe, acknowledging our source, we open up those channels and we open up new channels. I have had that experience in my life for the last 25 at least years. Now, if you're sitting here this morning thinking that sounds really great and good, but you don't know my financial situation and there's no way that I could give away 10%, I'm going to just kind of hit you in the face with something if you don't mind. Is it okay? Okay, this is a little tough love. Can I give you a little tough love? Here, okay, good. A few of you are up for it. Good. Okay. So this is from Catherine Ponder, and she simply writes, if you think you cannot afford to tithe, then you cannot afford not to tithe. The greater the present financial necessity, the greater the need for immediately invoking the power of tithing. And what I've talked to people before, and actually had somebody send me an email not too long ago about this, that she started to tithe and just saw some really beautiful results in her life. Financial results, relationship results, health results, really great. And then a little blip came along and she needed that 10%. And so she thought, well, just this one time, I'll go ahead and pay that bill with the 10%. Yeah, but then the next week, I kind of need that 10% again. So she paid a bill, and pretty soon she forgot about tithing. And life started not going so great again. And she acknowledged, when she sent me this email, she said, I get the connection. And so I'm in, and I'm in even when it gets hard. I'm in. And that can be my experience too. Even if it's difficult, even if I say, boy, I could really use that money for this. God is my source. I'm going to acknowledge that first before anything else. And go figure, oh, how usual, things just work out. But I want to give you a demonstration, a physical, visual demonstration of really this idea of how little 10% is and how much 90% is. So many of you were asked to participate with me in play. So if you are going to play, would you come up here now and bring your items that I asked you to bring? And if you would place on this table one of those items. And if you would place on this table, they brought 9 items. The other 9 of the items. Just bring them on up, and let me get out of here before you all come through. Let me... One here, 10 there. Wow. Can you just drink in the difference there? 90%, 10%, not so much here, quite a lot there. And the cool thing about the quite a lot, and I have not figured out how to magic, I wish I knew how to do this magically. If I had David Copperfield here, he could do this. But this would whoosh and expand that side of the table, because that is what happens. I want to read to you a letter that I got this week. It's from one of our online watchers. And George and Lynn, if you're watching us here in this service, we say hello to you. They live in Anthem. They have never been here to CLF. They came to First Church of Religious Science when it was here in this building many, many years ago. Let me just read you this. This is written by George. He says, I am 88 years old and have prostate cancer and have been the 24/7 caregiver for Lynn, my wife, who's 92. For the last 3 years because she has dementia. We have been primarily homebound and follow CLF on the internet. So just wave to Lynn and George right now. This is just for you, you guys. Earlier this year, we renewed our tithing commitment. when CLF did the 90-day tithing challenge. And after 3 years of blood in my urine and rising PSA tumor markers, I am now blood-free, and the tumor marker is too low to measure. I am now exploring alternative medicine to rebuild my immune system, which has been destroyed by months of chemo. Further, Lynn has recovered nicely from a hospital stay of 2 weeks with pneumonia and 3 weeks with broken ribs. We know the above is the direct result of our spiritual practices. So that is the most beautiful testimony I think I've seen in a long time. And George, thank you for giving me permission to share that. I really appreciate it. So we're going to offer another 90-day tithing challenge. We did it back months ago. We're going to do it again because the results were so beautiful and powerful. If you didn't do it before, maybe today is the day you do it. If you did it before, do it again because you get wonderful support over the 90 days. And I want to just share with you, again, a couple of testimonials for the challenge that we did last time. And this time we're going to do it via video. Several months ago, we took a 90-day challenge here at CLF. And here are some of the people who said yes to that challenge. Miraculous results occurred. Here are a couple of them.
Hi, I'm a tither, and like any good tither, by the second month, I'm going, excuse me, but I would really like my money now. I want you to know that I actually did get my tenfold in money, but it came several months later. What I got right away was something I never expected. I am a 2-time cancer survivor, and my last diagnosis was a stage 3, an aggressive stage 3 cancer. And I facilitate a group, cancer support group, and within that, in the 7 years that I've been doing this, there wasn't anybody showing up with a stage 3. I want you to know that since April, every single month, people have shown up surviving an aggressive stage 3 cancer. I got life. I got confirmation. I got it all.
Hi, Ciela. Tithing for me is it's kind of a spiritual experience because what I do, I trust that the universe is working, and I'm just kind of filling in my little clog in terms of having faith in myself and others. That's why I tithe. It's because I trust that everything will work out okay. And I'm giving to something that I totally believe in, which is obviously CLF, at the first level, but the grand level is God.
About 6 or 7 weeks after I started the tithing challenge, I received a call from a job that I actually got the job. I'm making great money, and I have all the benefits I was looking for. I've continued to tithe, and I will.
Hi, CLF. Tithing for me is very, very new and very scary because I have this dysfunctional relationship with money I've had my whole life. So to do this was a gigantic step of faith. And I'm amazed at what's happened. It's not only been financial, it's been a big increase in my relationships. I just can't say enough about it. It's totally changed my life. It started with the foundations class, but it's just gotten fantastic. Thank you.
So if you'd like your life to work like that,
Take the new 90-day challenge.
you'll be glad you did. Bye!
So if you would like to play with us, we invite you to do that. There is a form in the pew pocket in front of you. You can fill it out, put it in the offering plate as it goes by, or there are baskets to receive it in the back, as well as in the Wisdom Center bookstore. And we'll get you going, and you'll start receiving emails from me with love and encouragement, and it will be great fun. So, abundant giving of our time and our talent through Seva, and our treasure through tithing. When combined with the other practices we're going to explore this month and a couple of extras, they result in our personal and then collective transformation. where our hearts are opened to God's love and joy, and our dreams, hopes, and desires, planted there by Spirit, are absolutely manifested. So I invite you to join me in that abundant living. Let's pray. And before the prayer, I just want to invite you to acknowledge internally if there was any place in you when we talk about seva or tithing that was a button that got pushed, a fear, old programming, anything like that. And if that occurred, we acknowledge it, say thank you for sharing. And my invitation to each of us this morning is to see these two spiritual practices anew today. To see them as high and holy work. To see them as ways that we align with the divine nature of who and what we are. And that we express God in higher ways. God, the infinite giver of life, when we are a full giver of life. So in this moment, this prayerful moment, if there was a button or two that got pushed, let's take that into prayer. So knowing that there is one presence, one power, one life, one energy, one essence that is God, that is good, that is the ever-present flow of creative energy, that is the force behind all things, that is the love at the center of all that is the flow of all good, and knows and is only infinite givingness. Knowing this is true, recognizing that every quality I just mentioned is a quality that we are. I am, each one of us is, because we are God in form. Knowing this is true, I speak my word for us, and if any button got pushed, right now I see it dissolving into the nothingness from which it came. Because it is grounded in fear or past history, which has no place in this most glorious now moment. In this beautiful moment where we are choosing to say yes to expressing life in higher, grander, more expansive ways. So I know if there is any healing to be done, any truth to be revealed regarding these two topics, it is done here and it is done now. And in that healing, in the revealing of the truth of who we are, there is great happiness, great joy, great freedom, and great flow of good in every way, shape, and form in our lives. And so for this, I am so deeply grateful. So deeply grateful for the instant, perfect manifestation of this prayer. Call it good, very, very good. And I release these words into the fertile soil of the law. That law that only and always says yes. It has now said yes to these words, and as I release and let go, we allow them to be made manifest in our lives. So that is what we do. And we confirm and affirm that by saying, and so it is. Amen.